Roberto A. Almodovar. Exactly 1810 words. P.O. Box 1661. First North American Serial Rights, Klamath Falls, Oregon 97601. Copyright 2009 Roberto A. Almodovar. Prologue. The universe is vast and infinite. Was it a creation of cosmic chaos, or of divine intervention? Peter Norville took the curve at over 100 miles an hour, wheels gripping the road as if on rails. At the next straightaway he floored it, easily surging the M3 forward to 150 before slowing for the next curve. He gritted his teeth, the adrenaline rush flooding his bloodstream as his new Beamer hugged the highway. "Yeah boy," he blurted, patting the dash. Exiting the interstate, Norville's heart pounded with a smile painted on his face. He drove towards his office when traffic suddenly slowed. The street was blocked off in both directions by a wall of red, blue, and yellow flashing lights of emergency vehicles. Police officers waved the traffic by. Norville lowered his window approaching the intersection and stopped. "Officer," he began. "Keep moving," said the policeman, cutting him off. "You can't go this way." "I'm a vice president at Robert Motley Incorporated," he said, reaching for his ID badge. "I'll send someone to speak with you. Park there," continued the cop, motioning him to pull over. Norville felt his heart pound. He pulled ahead and parked. Switching on the radio, he scanned for the news. His heart skipped a beat as he listened. "Fuck," blurted Norville, adrenaline rushing through his veins. Tears welled up in his eyes. Everyone in his office had been killed. He sobbed like a child, waiting for the police, tears streaming down his face. Norville closed his eyes and gripped the wheel of his new sports car. He felt sick. It was all too horrendous. He needed to think, decided to check his email, and reached over for his laptop when he heard a crack, and felt a sting. "Arg," he moaned as he saw a hole appear in his driver's side window. The bullet just grazed the back of his neck as crimson surged from the flesh wound. "Son of a bitch," he screamed in anger that his new car was damaged. Then another pop and suddenly the window shattered. He instantly jammed the M3 into drive and punched the accelerator, rear wheels screeching as he disappeared down the street. Norville drove in terror back to the interstate, holding his burning neck. He pushed his new car to its limits to outdistance anyone trying to follow, then quickly got off a few miles up the highway. Norville handed the hotel clerk a crisp $100 bill. "Just one night," he said, "keep the change." Once in his room, he quickly connected his laptop to the Ethernet port to check his email, but discovered the site was down. "Shit," he blurted, then reached for his phone line and connected up his modem. "Hurry up, hurry up," he pleaded with his laptop, which slowly made the dial-up connection. He then was able to remote directly into the email server and started reviewing any messages. There was an error report from system support of a damaged underground conduit that crossed several data lines the night before. The dedicated T1 line to the L.A. office went down after the accident, causing several Rouge files to appear on the server. Norville stared at the files. He downloaded them as fast as the dial-up line would allow, and slowly his tension level went down a notch as he finally finished and disconnected. The killer sat crouching on the balls of his feet, carefully balancing his weight in the sand, hands comfortably resting on his lap, fingers interlocked as a gentle sea wind tugged at his parka. Dark sunglasses kept the invisible grains of sand from his eyes but couldn't stop the tears from sticking to his bearded face. 100 feet below he could clearly make out the large empty beach house. Beyond that, only the vastness and beauty of the Pacific Ocean. He shifted his weight up there on the cliffs and now sat with his legs crossed, waiting as the warmth of the rising sun finally did away with the wind. He could feel the barrel of the 8mm automatic tucked neatly in his parka. His cell phone rang and was told the target had made a large bank withdrawal, which meant he wasn't coming home. Norville glanced down at his laptop. "I got it," he blurted, They were simple text files which he appended into a database. After hours of manipulating the information, he compared the data against several internet search engine results. The file contained a database of genetic engineering firms, blood, sperm and egg banks. Associated with the firms were thousands of names. Norville indexed them alphabetically. To his surprise he recognized many. "My God," he blurted, "the President of the United States was listed here, world leaders, musicians, top scientists and even heads of clergy." He found common people including his own name on the list and the name of the hospital where he gave blood earlier in the year. The data also showed pickup dates related to each of the firms and the final destination for each pickup was Quito, Ecuador. Why was DNA being transported to one of the highest and remote mountain ranges along the equator of the Earth? Norville felt a chill, looked for companies on the west coast and sure enough there were many in his own backyard of San Jose, California. The closest was a DNA research facility located in Santa Clara and the date associated with it was tomorrow at midnight. The pain in his neck caused exhaustion and he needed to sleep. The next morning Norville switched on the news which had more grisly details of the shootings. None of it made any sense as he cried. Later that night a huge refrigerated 18-wheel sleeper truck rolled up to the loading dock of Gene Technologies at midnight, right on schedule. Norville watched from a distance as several large liquid-cooled containers were loaded on board. The truck then made several stops working its way down the state over the next day, each time visiting one of the facilities on the list, each time picking up similar liquid-cooled containers. When the truck was full it headed out east to Arizona. Norville followed the truck as it passed Phoenix, Tucson, and finally rolled into the small southeast town of Benson, Arizona. The truck made a short stop at the local food mart, then continued through town turning off to a private road and armed security entrance. "Shit," blurted Norville, as he passed the road, his heart pounding. He doubled back to town, but to his surprise another identical truck rolled in and pulled up to the same food mart. He quickly parked his car behind the mart and carefully climbed into the cab of the truck hiding behind the driver's seat in the sleeper section. The driver returned. The truck then made its way through the private road beyond the security gate and drove for several miles gently curving through the Arizona desert until it reached a line of similar trucks and came to a stop. The driver got out of the truck and Norville took a chance to peek out from the sleeper. Through the windshield he could see the line of trucks, leading up to a ranch house and barn surrounded with trees. Behind the farmhouse was an airstrip and sitting on the runway was one of the largest transport planes Norville had seen. It was privately owned, no markings except a tail number. He couldn't believe his eyes. The liquid-cooled containers of human DNA were being transferred from the trucks into the gaping belly of the transport plane. "Shit," whispered Norville, his heart racing as he watched the next truck pull up and the process repeat itself. He asked himself, what did it all mean and why were people being killed if they knew about this? Norville suddenly felt something punch him in the ribs, flopping him over and down like a rag doll, followed by the muffled sound of the silencer. He tumbled down onto the driver's seat, then fell through the opened door where his killer stood. Norville's bloodied face was buried in the warm Arizona sand, but somehow he felt little pain, couldn't describe the feeling. The killer stood over him. "I'm sorry," he said, "the country is not ready to know these things. "You motherfuckers," blurted Norville, coughing up blood, "you killed everyone. Please tell me why." Norville managed to roll over. He could feel a warm glow inside. It was hard to breathe. Tears streamed down his face. "Please." "Why?" he asked, pleading with his eyes. "That plane is on a mission to try and save the human race." "I don't understand," blurted Norville, struggling to breathe. "The end of the universe," said the killer, holding back his own tears, watching as the lead truck had finished unloading and the line began to move. He then smiled and laughed. Who knew that space, time, the universe itself and everything we've ever experienced was actually created in an energized ball of plasma in some fucking science lab. Unfortunately for us, the science project is about to end, added the killer. And no human invention, or technology can change that. You people are fucking crazy, Norville blurted with a whisper, feeling the pain of his wound for the first time. The killer looked down at him. Well, you asked, but there is some hope for us. What you and your friends stumbled upon is greater than anything conceived by mankind and must not be compromised. The creators of the universe have made themselves known and are offering a way to save the human race. The killer began to laugh. Wait, pleaded Norville as he raised the gun again. Creators, who are they? He fired another round into Norville. Sorry, it gets complicated. Norville could feel his life slipping away, didn't understand what was so funny. If it makes you feel any better, said the killer, reaching for Norville's arms and dragging him away from the truck, I'll be dead too in a few days. Bless me, Father, struggled Norville, trying to form the words, tears streaming down his face. For I have sinned, he said with his last breath. The killer shook his head, then turned around and walked back up the road where his car was waiting. He took comfort in the fact that Norville's DNA was already safely on board the transport, ready to depart for the real world. And that for all the innocent bloodshed, with a little luck he would see his victims alive again.